I have the feeling that you're gonna see this smile on my face a lot today, because I've been laughing probably for the last, it's been about 15 minutes that we've been on the call beforehand, before we started recording, before we started this episode. This young man, Taylor Clark, he's an incredible comedian, and not only is he great with his material, but also just as a human being. I tell you, my stomach is hurting right now because of this guy. I heard about him through one of my friends, Mirko Mangum, who has Opus Footwear, and this is probably, I believe, the greatest job in the entire world is what Taylor has. It's what we all want to do, what we all, aspire to do, to be able to make people laugh. But this guy actually has made a career out of it and is doing it at the highest level. I asked if he had a title that he wanted me to say, because so it impressed his wife, and he said that he would like to be referred to as the new Sonny Bono. So you're going to meet him here in a second. We had hats on that matched, but he changed. We looked like we were at Sadie Hawkins dance, but he changed out. I was hoping that we would stay the same as we went, because he's really cool, and his cool kind of can rub off onto me. Incredible skateboarder turned comedian, and now is taking the world by storm. I'm so excited to get this party started, so let's do it.
Cause we believin', it's for certain, we put the work in. We ain't stopped just because it's hurting right before your eyes. So it's coming to no surprise, the takeover is televised. Over and over and over again, make no mistake, we continue to win. Defeat never known, cause I will not lose. They wanna mimic my moves, but can't walk in my shoes.
The one, the only, Mr. Taylor Clark. How you doing, buddy?
Hey, Kelly. How you doing? I'm doing great. I didn't ever mean for that Sonny Bono riff to go public.
Do you think that your wife will believe it, or what?
I don't even know what that means. Even when I said it, I was like, I don't know why I threw Sonny Bono out there as my reference. But
I didn't understand either, but I thought that there was some sort of inside joke. You're a funny guy. You drink coffee out of a small cup, so I felt that you were credible, Taylor, and you do it so gracefully. Can you tell me about eggnog from
Sorry,
October?
I just spilled my coffee. Sorry, I gotta clean this up. What did you say about gracefully? Sorry, I gotta mop
Did
this
you
up.
just? So tell me about eggnog. Is it eggnog espresso that you do?
Yeah, my big addiction is eggnog lattes. I quit drinking, I quit smoking, but October through February 11th, and that's when they take it off the shelves officially. When they start kicking me out of the dairy section. I always go sneak behind. I'm like, you guys are hiding out on me back here. I know you've got leftover half gallons of nog, and yeah, February 11th. That's when it's illegal to sell, I think. But anyway, yeah, I drink it October through February 11th. Nothing, and I don't like it cold, really. I want it hot with a couple shots of caffeine. It's like a melted crack donut.
What is eggnog,
It's
by the way?
delicious.
Do you know what it actually is?
Who cares? It doesn't
Just
matter.
goodness? It's just dropped from heaven?
Yeah, I actually am I read ingredients of everything else that I eat, except for eggnog. I basically duct tape the ingredients so I don't have to read it, because I'm afraid of what nog even is. But
So let me get this straight. You read the labels of all the food that you eat?
everything I eat, I'm very careful. But
You smoked.
October
But you
through
smoked.
February
So,
11th,
hold on. But you smoked. So that doesn't make
throw
any
it all
sense,
out the
Taylor.
window.
Okay.
I know I used to smoke. Yeah, of course. I wasn't reading the fucking ingredients every pack of Marlboros I ever hooked. But when when I quit smoking and drinking and started trying to take care of my human body, I started being careful about the ingredients that were in all of the foods and stuff that I ate, except for October through February 11th, when I am eating
Do you realize that's
eggnog
half the year?
lattes.
That's half the year, Taylor.
4.5 months.
It's 4.5 months is well, it's a quarter. Well, it's a third
It's
of
a
the
good
year.
chunk. Look,
Okay.
look. It's a good chunk, but it's not half.
Okay. Oh my gosh. You guys see why I mean my belly, man, my belly hurts. How dude, tell me how you went
And the
from
thing is I'm a coffee snob otherwise. I drink this espresso. I have my own machine. I get my own beans. I grind them myself just to make sure it's as good of a fucking coffee shot as I can get. But then as soon as October rolls around, that all goes out the window. It's a nog addiction.
what is
And there's no
nog?
groups. There's no
What
meetings. There's nothing I can do about it. Everyone thinks I'm crazy.
what is nog actually? Because there's
Let's
nothing
change
else.
subjects. We can't talk about this for the entire podcast.
But I'm just saying, like,
I'm
I
sorry
just
to
want to figure out what nog is because there's not another. There's only eggnog.
I
There's not.
don't want to figure it out. That's why I want to switch subjects. I don't want to steer this direction into information that'll ruin my one joy.
Oh my gosh, how do you go, man? From we're gonna go from eggnog to comedy. So
Perfect.
how'd you go from skateboarding to comedy, man? I don't think those two don't. If you stand out in a skate park and be like, "Hey, everybody, I want to tell you a joke," that doesn't go over well.
My buddy Richard Bowen actually does that, and it kills. But I couldn't. I don't do it like that for sure. But I started doing comedy when I was 21 years old. I'm 39 now, and I always wanted to do comedy since I was a little kid. And so it was actually I was living at a skate house that was down the street from a comedy club, and I remember driving past it, being like, man, I've always, that's right. It was like going by like a magic shop or something where I was just like, there's something weird and stupid going on in there and I want to be in on it, you know? And as soon as I started doing it, like I remember from the first open mic I ever did, I remember being like, this feels exactly like a skate shop where it's like the comics are all hanging out by them in their little corner, just like skaters would at a skate shop. And like all the people who are like the customers are like shopping around, you know what I mean? But like we're speaking like a whole different language. We're like so much more down the rabbit hole of this brick and mortar's place that than they are. So there was like this separation between like the regular people and the miscreants,
Did you
and so I was
connect?
just like immediately attracted to the miscreants.
Did you connect right away? Because I said it before we started recording. There's so many people. I think every single person would. You have the ultimate job of anyone, but most people don't know
The
what.
ultimate job of anyone, me as a comedian.
Yeah, being a comedian, like every single person
No.
that I know, like, but they're not willing to put the work in. They just think, like I said,
Every
they make
single
it.
person that what in like the entertainment business that would like.
No,
Or
there's so
what?
many
What do you
people.
mean?
No matter what profession, they always tell me like, I would love to do an open mic or I'd love to try it, but then they don't have the courage to do it. What gave you the balls to go and do it?
I mean, I'm a delusional maniac and I'm broken.
Did you instantly start talking that way, or did you try and have a joke that you were trying to hit the punchline, or did you go up because you're funny naturally? Like this is, I've been
Thank you.
laughing for like 20 minutes or 25 minutes now.
To be fair, you're pretty easy, but thank you.
So help me with this though. What gave you the balls to stand? I mean, really to do it? And did you go in again
I
with
kind of, like I said, I always wanted to do it, and I guess like a lot of the people also have always wanted to do it. But for most people, public speaking is the number one biggest fear of most
Yeah.
people. So actually, most people, it's the last thing they would kind of ever want to do. Um, even though anyone who's got like ever gotten a laugh at a party or has thought they're funny or whatever feels that kind of like bug a little bit where they're like, man, that was gratifying, right? Like it'd be cool to get paid to get that feeling all the time or whatever, which is a very romantic way to put it, even though just like skateboarding on the other side of it, it'd be like when you watch a skate video, you're like, man, it'd be cool to just like go around and travel the world and land tricks all day, and then you don't realize that it's just like you don't see the falling, like most of it is falling. That's how comedy is too. It's like most of it is not that gratifying feeling. Most of it is like just throwing something out there and having everybody go, you're the worst. So
Did you land? Did you that first night when you did the first open mic? Did you have some that landed, or
the
did you
first
bomb?
open mic I did good, and then I ate my dick for a year after that.
A year?
Just a year at least. I mean, and still, I mean, I've been doing it for almost 20 years almost, and I still eat my dick all the time. It's just like it's if you're not, then you're not trying harder tricks, right? Like, so you got to fall a lot to land cooler stuff.
Did you notice that parallel right off the bat as far as the skateboarding? Because
Yeah,
I didn't.
immediately.
I didn't understand it until my brother told me. He was like, the resilience muscle in a skateboarder is more than anything, So
Yeah.
did it
Yeah, I
really set
noticed
you
it
up?
immediately.
Yeah.
Yeah, as soon as I started, like the parallels were constantly piling up to the point where, like, even still to this day, it's like my favorite thing to talk about with other comedians or other comedians who skate is like my favorite conversation because we immediately start drawing all those connections, and so it's I think, to me personally, I have not found anything other than comedy that's anywhere near as close to what I love about skateboarding. So that's one of the things that keeps me in it.
Who inspired you in skateboarding?
My first favorite skater was Rodney Mullen, probably.
Yes.
Yeah, and honestly, like I go through like periods with him where sometimes I'm like, he's, whatever. I don't like him anymore. And then I come back around and I'm like, oh no, he's the GOAT for sure.
How do you
But
in the
right,
skateboarding in the skateboarding world, Taylor? How do you go from like being inspired by someone to not trying to like almost mimic exactly what it is that they do?
and I've never been able to do that.
Okay.
I mean, there's people who inspire you. I mean, I think in comedy, people say like you always start out like doing someone else, kind of. And I think there were definitely comedians when I look back at when I first started where I'm like, oh, you're kind of doing an impression of this or that comic. But I was so young. I was 21 years old. So when I started, so my favorite comedian would change like every 6 hours. So I could like watch a set and be like, you're kind of doing a Chappelle impression, as a as a white 21-year-old that's like not the best look, whatever. And so I get kind of cringe moments like that. But then like a tape from like later that week, I'm like, why are you talking so slow? Who do you think you are, Mitch Hedberg? Like, when did this transition happen? But it's it comes and goes.
How long until you started to like almost lay into your own style as far as comedy?
Good question. I don't know if I have even still. I still am constantly like, is this how I sound? Is this my style or whatever? Writing has gotten easier where I go, oh, this, it's easier when I hear an idea or I have an idea where I'm like, oh, that's immediately I can just like see myself doing it. So that part has gotten easier, but I still never have felt like I've like found my voice. I think that's a kind of an illusion that a lot of people have in art and stand up period where they're like, "Oh, I'm going to find my voice and then everything I do will just be good because I found my voice." Because they look at their other favorites and they're like, "Oh, it seems so easy for them." And it's like they don't know that on the other side of the camera they're falling, that it's not easy. Part of the craft is making it look easy.
What are some of the things that we don't understand as an audience? I mean, because it's when you said you get the almost bug of you make somebody laugh or you make a group of people laugh. There's little joy that is that high, I believe, in the human experience as doing that. But what are some of the things that we don't understand that are happening to go into that as a profession?
Well, like even kind of what I said, trying to make it look or present as if you're just thinking of it off the top of your head, like that level of, and then to also be present at the same time to not make it feel like it's rehearsed. So you have to be like natural, present, but also memorized, and also thinking on your toes and like, changing timing or rhythm or delivery based on what's happening in the room, the crowd reaction, etc. So you're playing like, 8 games of chess simultaneously every second, that you're on stage, because it's all, at any, that's why, comics hate wireless mics, because they could cut out for just even
Oh,
that hair of a second. And if they cut out, or there's interference or something like that, just that one pause in the rhythm will ruin an entire joke. That one bit of pacing or
oh,
timing can mess up how good a punchline will hit, right? So if that punchline doesn't hit, then the next joke isn't going to be able to build on that momentum. And the next joke is designed to ride on the momentum of that punchline. So now this one fraction of an interruption has now blown essentially the audience's enjoyment of the next maybe 2 minutes to maybe even a half hour of material, depending on how important the punchline is or integral it is to the rest of the act. So when a mic cuts out or someone heckles or you get up to use the bathroom or something, depending on when that happens in the set, you could really kind of be ruining the entire show,
wow.
because it really is like, so every moment and breath is so vital. Not to every comedian, but to most of us.
Well, Taylor, I never knew that. I always wondered about the corded mic thing because I was thinking that with today's technology, they were always like comedians. You'll see them running, you guys coming across the stage, and you're constantly moving the wire or whatever it is. And I kept thinking the wireless, but that makes sense.
Hmm.
How do you stay present when you've told a joke already and you know what's coming, but the audience doesn't? How do you stay that's a tough art form.
Well, there's a couple, every comedian has different schools of thought on this, I think. But for me, I try to make sure that I like the jokes, which is tricky because I'd never like my jokes. So I have to at least like some part of it to like keep me in it, so that I'm like looking forward to this, or I'm like excited to share this with an audience, and then that way, even if it's something I've told a million times, I'm like, yeah, but these people haven't heard it. So like I have to be kind of excited. But if I have to do a set where I'm like, oh, I'm going to do all these jokes that I don't like that's when I'm not able to like be present, be engaged with the crowd. So part of it is just remembering what's funny about the material to me, and writing jokes that I like
Well,
to tell.
you're known for being super raw and super like, hey, this is who I am and I'm going at it.
Am I?
Is there anything off limits though? Is there places where your wife is like, look, we just had this experience last night. I know you're a comedian and you're writing. Don't talk about that one. Does that happen?
Uh, for me, it's more like easier to ask forgiveness and permission kind of thing. So I've never wanted to write about anything where I'm like, oh, I don't know if I'm allowed to talk about this, but I've definitely done a few jokes where I'm like, too far? All right, I'll back it up. So
Do you wait? I
it's
mean, do you wait on things or do you go at it like instantaneously? I mean, the reason why I say it is for myself, if something happens, I want to talk about it as soon as possible because then
mhm.
maybe this is my way of avoiding therapy, is just get it out there.
Hey, wait, that's not what this is?
Yeah.
I thought this was a BetterHelp app. What are we doing right now? Hold on.
so so
I specifically asked for no white guys with dreads. I wonder why they assigned me this.
that looked like a robber. You made
Yeah.
the beanie look cool, man. I got on and I looked like I was a bank robber. Is what it is. But help me with that too. Like, is there a amount of time that you're like, okay, that this happened in my family or, you know, with my friends or whatever it was, I'm going to let it rest for a bit? Or do you hit it that night?
It all depends. Like if it's a bit, like I can feel that it's turning into a bit right away. That's something that I want to make into a bit. Then I'll throw it right in the middle of a headlining set, like a high stakes show. Even sometimes, if I really, want to do it. But I don't know. I never really. I don't think there is. It depends. I don't really do anything topical that much to be like, oh, this happened in the news. I'm gonna go out there and hit it right now. Before Jimmy Fallon. So I don't really talk about that kind of stuff enough or feel like I want to have that kind of necessity or that urge to go try the stuff. But as far as stuff that happens in my life, if
Yeah.
it happens and it starts turning into a bit right away, like, yeah, I'm doing it as soon as the next opportunity I get, even if it's not funny yet.
Does it ever shut off? Like, are you constantly looking for the joke in every aspect of life? Because I right when we got on and we're starting talking, I mean, I didn't know the eggnog could be funny, but you made it funny to me. You made a small cup of coffee
My wife
funny
walked by
to
when
me.
you were talking about this. She's like, please tell me you're not talking about eggnog again. It's
Is your wife there? Can she hear
she
me?
was just sorry, I'm in my garage. She had to
Okay.
dig up. I know it looks like I'm in a mansion right now, but I'm in the I'm sitting next to the recycling.
How long does it take you to craft something to be funny? And can you take do you take normal stuff? I
Some
mean,
would
seriously.
argue I never have done this.
Oh, get out of
So,
here.
um, it totally depends, man. I'll work jokes. Like it's funny we were talking about that. Like I'll go too far and be like, all right, I need to back up. Maybe I won't do this bit or I won't talk about this anymore. Whereas sometimes I'll do something and no one will be into it right out of the gate, and I'll go, I know something's here. I'm gonna keep going, and it'll take me a year to finally figure out the angle or the turn that the joke wants to have. Even the skateboarding material, which is kind of like what helped, build my foundation of fans and stuff, that was all material like people used to ask me not to do. Like I would get booked on shows and people would be like, just don't do the skater stuff. You just always kind of lose everybody when you do that stuff. And I'd always be like, no, but I think I'll figure it out one, and eventually I did, right? But um, it depends. Like I've had bits that I'll quit doing and then 5 years later sometimes be like, oh, I have an opportunity to talk about this or use this one line that I wrote a million years ago. So totally the longest answer for a short question.
Can you teach someone to be funny?
No, but you can help them with their stat. You can help them with their jokes.
Is there like a construction of it? And I think about it. This is a bad comparison. I'm really good at bad comparisons. So as a kid, if you had to do a presentation, you told them you tell them what you're about to tell them. You tell them what you told them, right? And so they would tell you like, okay, that was the way to be able to go. Are there systems inside comedy that you utilize, and rules and principles and laws that you utilize?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, the real basic stuff like rule of threes, that's one of the most essential, you know, foundational blocks in comedy and art and photography and everything. But like generally, that's how comedy goes. It's set up, punchline, tag, rule of threes, right?
What's the tag? I know take us through the setup, the punchline, and the tag.
The setup is, why the chicken crossed the road. The punchline is to get to the other side, and the tag is my wife lives there. She's cheating on me with the chicken. And I need to talk to a white guy with dreadlocks about it. Can you help? Like the tag is like kind of anything related to the joke that comes afterwards, right?
Okay. Now, when
Yeah.
you're going
And then
through,
you can go ahead.
no, go ahead.
No, that's it.
So, do you use those each and every time?
No, not at all. I mean, like again, like there's no real hard bound rules when it comes to stand up. If you're up there and people are laughing,
Yeah.
technically, right, that's stand up. I mean,
Then
you
they'll
could
go.
draw real specific lines and go, okay, crowd work, even though that's a guy up there talking, right? Like a
Yeah.
guy who's a stand up comedian up there talking to people in the audience. And, technically you could say that's not stand up, that's improv. And then you could then hard line some of the rules around stand up as far as being like written material performed. But I'm not as hard lined about that kind of stuff
Yeah.
for the most part. Everyone can be snobs if they want to be to different levels and go, props isn't stand up and magic isn't stand up. And if there's two people on stage or whatever, or, you're doing a character or blah, 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 like that's not stand up. I've heard people make those arguments and they have some, valid points. A lot of it is because stand up is so hard.
Oh my gosh.
So doing like putting yourself out there, writing material about your life and experience and writing jokes that are original is very, very hard to get to work consistently, to start to get paid, to build a career, and then to have someone who just be like, oh, I just invented this character and I bring a guitar on stage and I make $2 million a year now or whatever. You're kind of like, hey, I could have done that if I wanted to. Like that's where a lot of that energy comes from, right? It's like I didn't know that. Like that's not cool, Like I'm trying so hard to succeed here. I'm competing against all these other yucks. You just put a wig on and do an accent, and you bring a guitar and some big shoes or whatever your gimmick or shtick is, and you got a shortcut to fucking a giant fan base. Like that's not fair. That's not comedy. You don't get to call that comedy. What I do is comedy. People get like that.
How
I'm
long did
I'm one of them. I'll snob out with the best of them, but for the most part, I mean, like, if you're, you know, putting on a bunch of wigs and doing magic and dancing around, spinning plates or whatever, and calling that stand up, like, and someone becomes a fan of you, and then like also becomes like that you're their first favorite comic, and then they also become a fan of me or some other like stand-ups who do less plate spinning than net positive for comedy, I figure,
who's inspiring you right now, or do you stay away from listening to comedy because you don't want
Good
them to rub
question.
off?
Good question. I listen to tons of comedy now, actually, more so than I probably ever have.
Okay.
Specials and albums and stuff like that. Like I try to actually digest a lot. I was preparing for my special. I was really just trying to see, what's out there. What are people doing, even as far as shooting, editing, all that kind of stuff. And obviously, just digesting a ton of comedy. I've been doing it long enough now to where like I don't think I could be influenced really to
Okay.
knock me off course of where my kind of comedy is right now. I used to have to not listen to certain comics because I could literally like hear their influence in my tapes and stuff.
Uh-huh.
So I would like not listen to them because I was like, it's affecting me. Like it's infecting me almost. Like I have to talk like them now. I feel like I used to listen to a ton of Bill Burr, and I still even like worry sometimes that I am too much like him. I don't think he's the fucking Mount Rushmore of fantastic goat comics. So there'd be high praise if anybody ever did compare me to him. But I literally used to go like that's how I talked on stage, was in this like yeah, I'm from Washington, but for some reason I sound like I'm from Boston, like, and it would be so obvious that I was just trying to be Bill Burr, very unintentionally, and this was like 4 years in the comedy still. I wasn't even a new guy. So there was a point where I was like trying not to listen or watch a lot of comedy, but I was out. This was when I lived in New York. I was out doing so much stand up that all of my actual biggest influences were always just comics that I was watching a lot out at shows and open mics and stuff. So kind of my friends ended up being like the biggest influences on my stand up during like probably the most, progressive time in my comedy.
Is there anything that could take the place of actual run? Like you were talking about, being there in New York and just doing the clubs, right? Doing it over and
I
over
didn't
and
do the
over again.
clubs in New York, PS.
Okay.
Yeah, I was just in like the indie bar scene doing shows at apartment buildings and cafes and stuff like that.
Okay.
Yeah.
But is there anything that can replace actually getting out and doing it? Because a lot of times people will study something so long, but they're not
Hold on
doing
real
it.
quick. I want to back up. That sounds snobby. I would have loved to do the clubs. They
Okay.
scared me.
It didn't sound snobby at all, man.
Okay, good. I was like, I was too busy doing really shitty shows. Like, to entertain actual show business was beneath me.
Tell me the story behind the title Dad's Hero.
Well, it's kind of a callback to a joke, which you'll have to kind of see in the special. But there's a lot of material about being a dad. There's a lot of material about my dad. There's a lot of material about my son. And I have a second child who is in my wife's stomach during the recording of the special. So, and my dad plays bass on stage, like to intro me and stuff too. So, there's just a lot of, dad's stuff going on.
How hard is comedy today? Like when you first started, you've been doing it. Is it 21 years?
Go, no, not quite. In 2 years, it will be 18 right now,
Okay.
almost 19.
Okay. So I mean, we're close, coming up on
God
20.
damn it, I'm old.
Well, 20 years ago, you didn't have the social media, you didn't have all those things. So now when a person's in a club, they can video it, put it up online. Now your joke lives. Is that tough in comedy now?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not at a level where that would like really affect me like so negatively. Like I hate when people post like jokes of them record of mine, like them recording from the audience. Even producers will do it sometimes where I'm like, don't, this isn't like, don't put the, like like me in the doing the setup of a joke without the punchline and then to just post it. And I'm like, they're like having a great time at the show. And it's like, I'm not even telling a joke. It's just me being like, anyways, so I was at the dentist the other day, and then they'd cut away. And I'm like, it just sounds like I'm bombing. Why would you post this? But when people get to a higher level and they're like, no, those are jokes I'm working on, and you're going to post it. And then, like, because I'm famous, people are going to share this, and everyone's going to know my joke, and it's not going to land in my special. But that doesn't happen really to me, so it hasn't affected me. So, next question.
Is there a positive and negative to social? Like you talked about a little bit about the negative part of it. Is there a positive to social to be able to create more of a groundswell?
Of course, yeah. I mean, I would be, nothing if I didn't post my clips on social. Like that's what gave me all of my opportunities that I've gotten has been from posting. Like just no gatekeepers, no one to say this is good or I want to share this on my network. Like you can just post it and as many people as possible, or at least have access to it, right? So very positive for an artist or a clown as myself. The negatives though are like that is such an extreme positive, it's worth like a billion points, but all of the negatives of social media are like just almost stack up so high that it's unjustifiable to be on it at all. But you know what I mean? It's like 999 points worth of negatives that almost outweigh the like access to fans. So
How long does it take? Like when you do a set, say you do a 30-minute set or 15-minute set or 20 or an hour, how long does it take to actually craft that 20 minutes, hour, or 45 minutes?
well, I'll say it's like to draw this parallel to skateboarding again. Like it takes, let's say, a lot of skaters anyway. This isn't necessarily true, but we use it as a good example. It takes 10 years to get good enough, let's say, to like film a video part that's worthy of like a pro board or a career, right? In skateboarding, that's a pretty good rule of thumb. I think generally some people do it in shorter amounts of time or whatever, but like you skate, that's usually, that's a pretty good rule of thumb. Comedy is a real similar time frame, actually. It's about a decade it takes most people to like get that hour of material that's like worthy of recording, right, and putting out there. I would say for me it took 12 to 15 almost. But the second hour that I just put out took me approximately 3 years. So
Really?
a lot of that is stage time, because after I put out my first album, I was headlining a lot more. So I was on stage for an hour all the time. So whereas the first hour was put together over a series of, 7, 8, 9 years of 4 or 5 minute sets. And then slowly I got longer 10, 15 minute sets. So the only way to practice stand up is on stage. So without that stage time, you can't make the material better. You know what I
So,
mean?
so when you're on tour, do you go to local places though to test out the material? Do you go to open mics as often as possible?
I for sure I do. Since my new son was born, I can't really. He's 6 months old now, but my 9 year old, like I don't know. We could back up a little bit. I had to like quit doing stand up because kids basically put a giant roadblock in my ability to go up, especially every night, which is kind of what you have to do to get good at this. So when I moved to Washington, I was able to get a lot more stage time because it wasn't as competitive as it was in New York. And I was finally getting in at clubs, which I didn't, like I said, didn't do really at all in New York. So that immediately, I was just like, I put a ton of material together and polished it into what was like a much better, more presentable like act of even like 10 to 15 minutes. But that was like, I was in the comedy already 12 years at that point, you know?
Wow. How long
Yeah.
in did you realize, how long into comedy did you realize that you were like, this is it, this is going to be my profession, this is what I'm going after?
I mean, every day I'm like, I think I gotta get out of here. I'm pretty much wrapping it up every time, every other, every other meal. So, but I think, I mean, I moved to New York to do it. I uprooted my life in Washington and moved to New York to like specifically pursue stand up. So I was 23 when I did that. So it's 2.5 years into stand up when that happened. And I was like, this is my life, everyone back off. I was so bad. And then I moved to New York and it was just like so obvious how bad I was at it. And continuously, I'm reminded of how bad I am at it. But I've definitely gotten a lot better since then. I think is my argument. the but it was really when I moved back here and my son was like 4 years old, and I was like, if I don't do this, like I'll always look back and be like, what if? And I was like, so basically, what do I have to do to ensure that I can live a functional lifestyle with a family and still pursue stand up full time, which seemed like almost an impossible feat. So I quit drinking and quit smoking and started just doing all of these more like administrative tasks for my stand-up career that I'd never done before, like emailing people for shows or like getting a headshot or like building a website or posting on social media. I never did any of that, and I was 12 years into comedy, so it was like, oh, let's actually like try to have a career. Like crazy concept, it's more than just like going to the show and having beers and getting up on stage and floundering. Like had no idea that there was more to it. It was like I finally saw Oz behind the curtain of how stand up worked and was like, oh, turns out you got to do a lot more than just drink. And so I was like, all right. And once I started doing all the non drinking stuff, I started to get opportunities. But that was really the point where I was like, I don't really, if I don't have a choice. It wasn't even like oh, I can't wait to pursue this. It was more like, I'm fucked. It was like a diagnosis. It wasn't like, it wasn't like an yay moment. Like it was a like, hey, like I had to have a sit down with my wife. It was like it was like not a happy scene, realizing that I was
What
going
did
to
your wife
pursue
say?
stand
What'd
up
your
for the
wife
rest of my
say?
life.
What'd your wife say when she had to sit down with you?
I believe when I had to sit down with her, and I told her, like, unfortunately, I have to do stand up for the rest of my life. Her exact word was no, and I'm quoting her directly on this. There was no before, there was no after. It was just the hard N word.
How long? How long did it take you to convince her?
I'm still working on it. It was like 4 or 5 years ago. She hasn't left me yet, so I wouldn't say she's like convinced, but she's on the ride still.
What was there a point in your comedy? I remember reading Kevin Hart's book, and there was a point in his comedy. He started off as Little Kev the Bastard, was his stage name. And then he had a mentor that came to him and said, you need to scrap that and get rid of it because it sucks. And you need to be Kevin Hart. And that's when things really started to move for him. For
That's
you,
crazy. I used to go by Kevin Hart, and someone told me to start going by Little Kev the Bastard. Maybe that's why it took me so long to get into the clubs. I didn't even know there was a competing comic with the same name. This guy really steered me in the wrong direction.
That's probably where it was. Was there a person, like a mentor for you that, kind of helped you along or gave you some counsel?
For sure, yeah. Like, there's a lot of comics along the way when I started. Scott Moran and Rory Scovel were like big mentors to me when I first started in New York. Rory Scovel is still, one of the best comics I think working, and still, has been in my corner a few times when I've needed him. He's the man. Mark Norman has helped me a few times, really, really mentored me when I was in New York. And, I could keep going. It's a long list, but very grateful to all of my comedy mentors.
Who have you been watching right now?
Right now, there's some comics. Dude, Django. Oh my God, I can't remember his name. Django Gold. Really amazing comic who kind of I literally just found on YouTube. I've been watching him a lot. Amazing, great comic, good writer. His new special is like really amazing. Dan Soder's new special is one of the best specials I've seen. It's one of the only specials I've watched like back to back where I was like, I'm just starting this over and watching again. It was so funny.
Isn't it just an individual sport, or is it one where the comics come together and want you to succeed?
It totally. Which comics?
So it depends on.
Like, some of them are for sure there for you, and then some are there for you when you're doing bad, and then when you start doing good, they don't want anything to do with you or resent you, and there's other people who you didn't think liked you at all, and then you do good, and you're like all of a sudden they're really, really stoked on you, So, it all depends. What is that? I forget who said this. Isn't this some Tony Robbins bullshit or whatever? But like, you are the your audience will love this. What is this? The vibe? It's all about like positive energy, right? But you are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. So, if you can just pick your 5 very appropriately, which I think I've done a pretty good job at. Yeah. My parents, my wife, and my children, and I'm better than all those motherfuckers. So.
When do you go out on tour again? When will you start? Are you still working on new material right now?
Yeah, I'm building my next hour. Hopefully, it is going slow, but it's going. I'm building it up. I'm hopefully. I have a 6-month-old baby at home, and I'm working on just kind of getting this special out as soon as I can, and going to try and do as much promotion and stuff for that, so that hopefully it does well, and then I can tour after that. So,
it'll do well. When does it come out?
Father's Day. Knock on wood. Everything goes according to plan.
Right on, man. Well, congratulations on that. Hey, man, I started the podcast because of my 2 kids, and I wanted to take I believe, again, that I'm a little choppy, so I could still see you and you're still moving. But if you're watching right now on YouTube, my image is a little choppy. But your profession and what you do, man, and the fact that this, I mean, honestly, my hat's off to you. And it's so iconic to me. Like being a comedian is, for me, you said that there's a lot of people in your life that would never want to do it. But in my life, there's so many people that I see, and with myself, like it's a really, really, really cool thing that you do. And very, very inspiring. But I started the podcast because of my two kids, and I wanted them to not ever worship like what someone did, but I wanted them to be inspired by what they, who they were. And so what advice would you give for Maddox and McKenna? And McKenna is 15 years old, my daughter, and my son is 12 years old. And if you could use both their names, it would be awesome.
Matthew and McKenna?
Maddox.
Maddox.
You could call him
Maddox?
Matthew. You could call it's French for Matthew is French for Maddox.
Maddox, you have a really cool name. I think your dad named you after that A Day One Song old clothing company. Right? No.
My wife chose
anyways.
both the names, man. I got no love on either one of them.
What were you gonna name them? Bob and Marley? What now I can't remember even what I'm supposed to say to them.
Any advice that you would have for the two of them?
Any advice for life?
Maddox. Well, yeah. I mean, I think that your story is one of resilience, which I think is amazing. The fact that you with skateboarding, you fell down, you got up. With comedy, you keep saying that you fall down. You're a funny ass guy, though. So I don't think you fall down as much as you say you do.
You should talk to my doctor and my orthopedic surgeon and my dentist, because they would have other things to say. So and my wife. Do whatever you're gonna do it for the love of the game, because there's no promises. You might not succeed. You probably won't. Most people don't succeed. So whatever you're gonna do, just enjoy the process of it. Don't do whatever you're doing because you think the outcome is gonna give you satisfaction or happiness, because it won't. And the end.
What's the next thing for you, Taylor? Like, what's the kind of almost the next little milestone, or I like to call them inch stones? What's the next little inch stone that you would like to accomplish?
I would love to tour. My next inch stone, I'd love to start headlining weekends at comedy clubs.
Are you going to come to La Jolla?
I do headline weekends at some comedy clubs, but I would love to be touring comedy clubs but as well as the stuff I do now.
Okay. Are you going to come to La Jolla to the I think is it the Laugh Factory? Is it the Comedy Store? I think it's the Comedy Store.
The Comedy Store, I think, right? Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I know. I should be able to get in there.
Okay, please do, because that's where we live in Carlsbad, and so we've got to see you.
How much are tickets? No, sorry, I should be able to. I don't know if I can afford it now, but yeah, we could go there.
No, I'm saying you need to. You need to put that on the docket.
I know. Hopefully, I can get booked. I was joking.
Oh, dude, you're amazing, man. I appreciate you.
You're amazing. Thanks, Kelly.
I can't wait for the new how are you releasing it? Are you doing it like an album like you did the last one?
As soon as I'm gonna send it to Netflix and Hulu and Amazon and HBO, and when they all say no, I will put it on YouTube.
Dude, you're awesome, man. I appreciate you. We're gonna have the link in the bio for all everything Taylor Clark. I love you, man. You're incredible. I'm gonna force you to be my friend for the rest of your life, so you can't get rid of me. And
I love you too, Kelly. Thanks, man. And I don't care what anybody says. You keep those dreads fucking as long as you can. I don't care how many PTA meetings they question whose children you're there to take. Before you announce that you're there for your own children's sake. I don't care how many times stuff like that happens. You keep it up.
I appreciate it, man. You're incredible.
If I had hair, I'm just speaking from a bitter place. You're the best.
You're awesome, man. Well, you're officially off the hot seat, man. Peace, love, and so on.